Hi everyone, Josh here from Secrets of Seeing. I'm just here at the Freud Museum to see a mask that we've been asked to reproduce for the museum's collection. We're making a copy that can be displayed safely on the wall in the museum. And here's the original. This is a genuine Egyptian artifact, a Fayum mummy mask. From the Roman period of Egypt. You can see here this one's quite damaged, so we're going to try and replicate this painting. We're going to paint it on plywood. They would have used other kinds of very thinly planed wood like lime wood, imported from Europe, but we're just for this purpose using a really thin piece of plywood with a very thin layer of plaster on the surface. You can see the chips in this paint. We want to try and replicate that. So here in the middle you can see the plywood board. It's been cut to the shape almost similar to that of the original painting. We'll distress it a little bit more at the end. It's got some chips in it and stuff. And I'm just colour matching at the moment this background kind of greeny grey colour. You can see me dabbing the paint onto that printout to see how close I'm getting it. The middle image is obviously the board that we're going to be making this picture on, and it has been coated in a very thin layer of plaster of Paris, about 1 millimetre thick, so we can chip into it after we've made the painting and hopefully replicate the chips and distress and damage and cracks that are in the original. It's also had a very thin wash of yellow acrylic, yellow ochre actually, put over the surface, very, very thin, to warm up the whiteness of the plaster. You can see me applying the background grey colour here now. So the drawing that you can see on the plaster surface, that's just been done in pencil for this purpose, because I want to get it as accurate as possible to the original. I've transferred that drawing over just to aid in the placement of the paint. If I was making my own painting, I don't often draw a pencil outline first, but for this it makes it a little easier. So you can see my palette looks a little messy. That's because I've used it for paintings in the past, but I'm actually using a very small number of colours for this painting, which replicate somewhat what would have been available to artists in Europe and Egypt at the time. A lot of the pigments were actually imported from Europe. So a little history about the Fayum Portraits. They're painted in a Greek naturalist style. So painting was a big thing in ancient Greece, but all of those paintings have been lost to history. And we think that these portraits from ancient Egypt hint at what their paintings may have looked like. So I'm starting to apply the base colours just to the face now. You could try and follow along with this if you like. The timings of how I'm applying colour, I'm starting from quite light first. So these paintings were made around the first part of our Common Era, so from the transition from BC to AD, around the first 400 years, maybe a little bit before also. During the Greek period of ancient Egypt, painting will have been imported. This style of painting will have been imported by Greek artisanal painters. But most of the portraits that have been found were actually painted in the Roman period, so when the Romans were in control of ancient Egypt after the fall of Cleopatra. Most of the portraits are found in a very small area called the Fayum, which is why they have the name Fayum Portraits, although they were also found in other parts of Egypt as well. And they were made specifically to be attached to the mummies of the individual that the face represents before it was buried. Now, we don't know whether they were painted while that person was alive or if they were painted after death. As an artist, personally, I think a lot of them may have been done while the people were alive, and there is theories that the paintings were actually kept on the wall in frames of the homes of the individuals way before they died, while they were alive, and once they died, then they were placed into the mummy wrapping where the face would be. Some frames, picture frames, even holding some of these portraits have been found. Not very many, but at least 2. So in some way that kind of proves that theory, probably. So you can see at the moment, if you're a learner drawer, it can be quite difficult at this point if you're making a portrait or a picture of a face, because it doesn't look very good. There's lots missing still, and you have to keep pushing through at this point. Keep pushing, and it will eventually click into place very late on. This is the issue with drawing faces and painting faces. People feel not very good at it because it is a real tricky thing that it all comes together at the final moments. So at the moment I've just been adding, as you can see, I'm starting to add darker colours. I'm looking at the printout all the time. If I was looking at a real person, I would be looking at them all the time to try and sort of really observe what it is that I'm putting down onto the picture. You can see me adding darker tones now. All of this is acrylic paint, and I will list the colours that I'm using, and they'll also be in the caption underneath the video. I'm using acrylic paint in titanium white, ivory black, raw umber, yellow ochre, Venetian red, and I think that might be it. Yeah, so it's a very small palette. It's sometimes referred to as the Roman palette. It uses all mostly colours that are made from minerals, although some plant materials would have been used to make the true colours that were being used for the real portraits. But those colours seem to go pretty well to match the colours that were used in the portraits, as far as I can tell. Okay, so I've added a lot of the detail now. The hair. People have a lot of problems with hair, trouble with hair. I get a lot of questions from students about hair. So you can see actually the hair on the top of the head, I've just blocked in almost flatly with a larger brush. There's just one large shape. Really, in hair like that's dark and curly, you're going to really be like blocking in most of the colour first and then looking for either really highlights and also details around the edges, which you can see I'm putting on just now. The beard that has straighter hair is almost the same, really. It's blocked in as one colour, and then there's darker pigment added to add a little bit of detail. Now, this particular style of mummy portrait is a little bit simple. Some get much more complicated, there's much more detail involved, much more layering. This is almost a caricature sort of version. In the Secrets of Seeing Faces class on the Fayum Portraits, I go into a bit more detail about the different styles that we used to paint these portraits, but this one in particular is quite simple. In a way, though, it makes it really great to try and copy as a beginner, because everything is broken up into separate shapes, and it's quite simple. So, just painting in the eyes here, paying attention to how big they are. The eyes were typically enlarged in these portraits. One theory is that people think that it makes them seem a little bit more alive than if the eyes were a naturalistic size. It really does make it feel like these portraits are looking out at you. And adding some tonal detail to the clothing now. So you can see the pictures coming together a little bit. There's still some details to add though. Just dealing with the clothing here. Sorry if it leaps off the page, off the screen a little bit. For those of you that might want to try this at home, I'm only using, I think, 2 or 3 brushes. There's one flat, fine brush, which I'm doing these marks with now. There's a medium sort of sized flathead brush. They're all flat-headed brushes as well, square. And then there's a larger one, which is what I blocked in the background and the hair with. So you don't need much equipment to do this. I'm also using water, but not very much, a little bit. I am trying to add the paint in thinnish layers, and because it's been painted onto a plaster surface, the paint soaks in a little bit, which is quite a nice effect, actually. Okay, so you can see me adding all the details here now, which are really kind of bringing the thing together. And finally, I'm scratching in details into the painting to create, first of all, the shapes in the hair, the highlights, which you can see in the original, and then also the breakages. So you can see me really hacking at it here with a screwdriver as a chisel. I'm sorry about my head there. I'm also trying to create cracks and so on, which sort of mirror the damage that occurred on the original. The benefit of also using plaster at the beginning is I can move it around with a brush after it's been chipped out, and it actually kills off some of the bright colour a little bit, making it a little bit more tonally like the original artifact. So I'm chipping it right back in places to the wood, because that's what's happened on the original. And later on I'll add a bit more colour. As you can see here, I've got some very watered down ochre brown acrylic, which I'm just again applying. I saved this from the wash that I did right at the beginning on the bare plaster. I saved it so that I could also apply it to these little cracks and indentations, because I don't want it to look like brand new white plaster. I want it to go back to looking kind of antiquated and dirty and aged with time. So this process goes on for quite a while. There's a lot of work to try and make it look quite similar to the original. The reason why the Freud Museum commissioned this was is for an exhibition where the lighting control and humidity control in the room isn't really sound to have the original Egyptian artifact up on the wall for people to see without it getting damaged. It's also very fragile. It's already cracked and been repaired at some point in the past. So because they wanted to display it on the wall, I was commissioned to make this this facsimile, this replica. It is marked on the back with the information about me making it, who I made it for, and that it is a copy, a facsimile. It's not a forgery. It's quite clearly marked, and it wouldn't be able to be sold as an original. It wouldn't take much for an expert to look at this and know that it was a modern replica anyway. But sometimes when I get asked to do these jobs, I do have to mark them just in case. So you can see there's quite a lot of damage going into this. Obviously, if you made your own portrait in this style, you might be able to do it from a photograph of a family member or a friend. Or you could try and make a copy of a real Egyptian mummy mask. But you might not want to chip into it like I'm doing here. I just wanted to give you an idea about this unusual, quite interesting job. Okay, so you can see it's really starting to sort of resemble the printout that's on the left. There's actually quite a substantial amount of the original portrait missing. You can see on the forehead and down past the mouth. and on the cheeks. These really actually affect the appearance of the image. Okay, so in a moment I'm going to show you how the final piece looks. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing us create this copy for the Freud Museum. It's now on display at the Freud Museum, and if you want to visit that, it's here in North London. If you want to know anything more about the Fayum Portraits, Secrets of Seeing Faces, The Magic of the Fayum Portraits, is on Saturday the 2nd of December 2023 at 2 p.m. in the afternoon with the London Drawing Group, and the link to the class is just below this video. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like and subscribe the videos, help us get some more views, and hope to see you again soon.